Garland Nixon, radio talk show host, political analyst, and long-time friend of ours on the mother of all talk shows. Garland, welcome back. I want to talk to you mainly about the electoral season, but I wanted to ask you first. I asked Professor Danny Shaw this. That young girl, student, American citizen, shot through the head by an Israeli soldier. Not a word of condemnation from your government, and instead an insidious media attempt to deracinate her, to place the prefix Turkish. She's Turkish, don't you know? Not a real American. It's pretty disgusting, isn't it?
Yes, and what we're seeing is a government that cracks down on its people when they push back against the policies. We have the people in America who, over the course of their lives, have been taught that this is a democracy and that they have a right to input into the activities of their government. But what we found is that when people push back against the violent actions of the United States, both here and abroad, that the U.S. simply cracks down on the people, and it's getting more and more clear to the American people that their input is not wanted by their government, and that we are, unfortunately, rather than members of the U.S. government state, more than citizens of the U.S. government state, if we push back, we become victims of the U.S. government state.
Yeah, an enemy within, but there's rather a few of you. And some of them, like you, like Shaw, like Ritter, like Hinkle, and many others, are achieving stratospheric levels of audience. So their crackdown isn't really working, is it?
No, and a very important trial that I think people need to pay attention to, that a lot of people aren't focusing on now, is there's a group called the African People's Socialist Party, also known as the Uhuru Movement, and it's a fairly small black freedom organization. It's a socialist organization. They do a lot of work in very poor black neighborhoods, building basketball courts, and they have programs for when people get out of prison to help them to learn skills to get a job, very productive things of that nature. And the government of the United States decided that they were puppets for the Russian government, and their trial is going on right now in St. Petersburg, Florida. I know a number of people who are covering the trial. I understand that the federal government is having difficulty proving their case. We're looking for the Uhuru Movement's defense counsel to begin their defense probably Monday or Tuesday, but I think people should pay attention to that case, should go to their websites and support it in any way that they can. But that's a very important trial, because if the government loses that trial, I think it demonstrates that there is some room still in the courts of the United States for some level of justice, albeit, a court that we don't trust very much. And that certainly, we didn't want to get Assange there, and we don't want to get any of our beloved brethren that are working on behalf of the Palestinians into our courts, because we don't trust them. But all that being said, the Department of Justice has not been very good at prosecuting these cases. So we're supporting the Uhuru Movement and hoping for the best.
Ironic that it's in St. Petersburg, Florida. Was that ever called Leningrad? I joke. The efforts to destroy Trump in the courts are not going well either, are they?
No, the latest thing that has happened is that the trial in New York, Donald Trump was supposed to be sentenced. Certainly the Democrats were hoping for that to happen as quickly as possible, so they could ideally get Donald Trump put in jail before the election. The judge has determined that it's in the best interest of all to push that sentencing back until after the election, so that there is not the appearance, which clearly, obviously, there is not the appearance of interference with the election. I think here, the big election news is going to come Tuesday night, when Donald Trump goes face to face with Kamala Harris in a debate. I think there are many of us who have been watching Kamala Harris over the course of the years and have great questions about her, shall we say, rhetorical skills, are expecting a performance that will, similar to that of Joe Biden, some kind of a debacle and a collapse based on the kinds of things that we've seen her do recently in interviews, et cetera.
Well, unless the questions are about the problem of getting your lipstick on the white lids of a Starbucks coffee cup. I heard her speak very eloquently about that. But looking at the one interview that she has done, highly coached, accompanied by a waltz, and truncated, censored, to show her in the best possible light, it wasn't a very flattering light, was it?
In fact, it was a disaster, and it was the usual Kamala Harris. She doesn't answer questions, but as a politician, there's nothing wrong with not answering questions as a politician. There's a skill that many politicians have where they cannot answer a question in a very artful and skillful way. What Kamala tends to do is kind of get lost, start wandering and meandering, and trying to use platitudes and metaphors that she gets lost in. And at some point, they make no sense. So there are those of us looking at that. Certainly the inside information that we hear is that 20-minute interview was actually a 1-hour interview, and about 40 minutes of it was cut. And if that was the best 20 minutes, then she's in a world of trouble when she goes to head with Donald Trump.
Although I still feel he's kind of lost a bit of his mojo. What do you think?
Well, in the first debate with Joe Biden, he did seem a bit subdued. He didn't seem as aggressive as he is. He didn't seem as dominant as he has been in the past. But then again, he didn't have to, because he could kind of get out of the way and let Joe Biden crash. And I think in this particular instance, there will be something similar, wherein if he kind of answers slightly on the questions, if he kind of gets out of the way and just says what he needs to say, I think he can get out of the way and allow Kamala Harris to shine or to crash, as it were. And I think that probably is the plan.
The polls are all headed his way, particularly in the swing states. Massive leads in some of those swing states. It'll all be for nothing, of course, if the election is rigged on the night. How big a concern is that?
Well, there's a tremendous concern, and there are many of us who, for years, have been, screaming about the election machines. We have computers that are used for the elections that the people have no way of knowing how it works out. They have software that is proprietary. So it's very, very easy to rig this election using the election machines. We actually had a case a few years back where one of our friend of mine was challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And after the election, they found that this person got exactly the same percentage of votes across all demographics, every demographic in the computer, which is virtually impossible. He then asked for the images of the votes to be shown in court, as is required by law. And the government destroyed the images so they could never be seen in court. And the court did not act or prosecute anybody for that. So certainly we don't trust the election. I do recall, for all of his faults, I can quote Barack Obama when in 2008, when they asked him, what if somebody tries to rig it? And he says, you have to beat them so bad they can't rig it. And I think that's Donald Trump's only out. He has to have enough of a lead that makes it difficult for them to rig it, which many of us believe is exactly what happened in 2016, to be quite frank.
Yeah, and maybe even in 2020 also, but that's another story. The Russiagate balloon has been hoisted again. People have been arrested and blacklisted. They've been told that they must register as foreign agents and the rest. Apparently, there was a lot of money put into a company in the South somewhere. Tenet Media, was it? I've never heard of it before, but they were paying good money, Garland. How come we didn't get any of that work?
That's what I keep hearing from people that are accused of being, Russian agents and Russian spies and sympathizers to Putin. The question is always the same. How come I didn't get my share out of that if I'm going to be accused of it? But the reality is it's a very strange case because once again, what we have is the DOJ saying, I'm going to charge some people that are not in the United States that will never come here, so I don't have to prove my case. I'm going to make an allegation against some shady firm that allegedly gave money to another somewhat shady journalist firm. Again, no one's been charged there, so there's not going to be a case, so we don't really know what's behind it. And what happens all too often in Russiagate is you get allegations, you get assertions, but they don't have to go to court, they don't have to prove anything, and so it just kind of drifts off into the ether. Let's not forget, in August, we were getting, people can go out there and search for the articles, we were getting allegations that China and Iran were involved in election interference. We've got these crazy articles saying, well, China wants, China wants Biden, Iran wants Harris. China wants Harris, Iran wants Harris, Russia wants Trump. This thing has gone to a level of absurdity where basically all of the political hacks all are setting the stage so that when and if their candidate loses, they will have the appropriate adversarial country to blame it on. It's just like they're tacking this on to neocon foreign policy, so that whatever happens, they'll have some additional manner that they can use to go after their named adversaries.
Whereas Netanyahu wants both to win or either to win, doesn't give a damn which of the two wins, because both of them are in his pocket. AIPAC have spent $100 million on this election cycle alone, and it's still September.
Yeah, and the reason being, I think, is this, because he's a member of the imperial team, in the same way, one of the things that's been discussed is whether or not Benjamin Netanyahu will respond to the Israelis, to the citizens in the street, which implies that there would be democracy in Israel. And I would ask this: has the German government responded to the German people and their election? No. Has Macron responded to the French people and that election? No. Recently, the Prime Minister of Japan had to step down. Why? Because rather than stand up for what the people of Japan wanted, he decided he'd quit first. What we're seeing is the U.S. and its so-called allies, but which are really colonial powers. None of them respond to their citizens. They all work for the U.S. empire, and the U.S. empire is an ideology of its own that puts in managers of the empire, but it doesn't really have, even the word president, it means preside over the empire, not guide or control the empire. So I think we're talking again, the term imperialism gets used too much, but I think right now it's more appropriate than ever, looking at the dynamics of the U.S. government and the countries that it controls.
Sure is. Garland Nixon, thanks as always for being on the mother of all talk shows.